Many of you here. Thanks for joining this Faculty Connections. The staff in Study Abroad and International Student Services were excited to share one of our newest initiatives, the Global Classroom. For those of you who don't know me, I am Christy Schreffler. I am the director of the Center for Global Exploration, which was formerly Exploration Study Abroad, so our name has changed. I am here with my colleagues, Kristen Katrina, who is the Associate Director in the Center for Global Exploration, Chisomo Selemani, who's the Associate Professor in Communication Sciences and Disorders, and Danielle Kuntz, the Assistant Professor of Music History. So as you can probably guess, study abroad and exchange programs have been paused since 2020. And although this has left us in a place we never expected, it has allowed us to think creatively about internationalizing the campus and recreating opportunities for students. So out of this change, Global Classrooms was created with a goal to offer opportunities to internationalize your classrooms and your curriculum by virtually connecting with BW's global partners. So since our time is limited, we're going to go ahead and start with a short video, which will provide an overview of the global classrooms, and then we'll go into specific examples from Chisomo and Danielle and how they have successfully implemented these virtual exchanges into their courses.
Baldwin Wallace University Study Abroad presents Global Classrooms, Exchange, Connect, and Learn.
So yeah, and I really like getting to kind of connect with the people we're going to be working with by sending them devise works like kind of back and forth. I think that's really cool.
It's really interesting and creative and feels really fun to get to know them this way and sort of like the different approaches to how we answer and ask the questions between our group and their group.
The Global Classrooms Initiative offers innovative opportunities to internationalize your curriculum by virtually connecting with BW's global partners. Collaborate with international faculty to exchange ideas, learn new teaching techniques, and grow your international network. Create a cross-cultural learning experience where students and faculty from around the world participate in shared assignments and learning experiences.
Our faculty have always had connections and communication with our partners abroad during the academic year, but pulling students into those interactions and allowing them to interact not just with the partners and the other professionals, but with the students and with the community members that we see virtually has been an enriching and enlightening experience for both the students and the faculty.
The Global Classroom Initiative pairs you with a BW Global partner to collaborate in a variety of ways. From global lecture exchange and research and project-based learning to global pen pals, virtual tours, and co-taught courses.
Do we really think that a virtual means of communication can enhance their educational experience? It did.
With our counterparts in Zambia, we're able to talk to them and connect through videos, and that's really awesome.
Strangely less scared of meeting the people across the world in Zambia, because their videos, from what I've seen, they give off so much energy and they're so welcoming.
It really made a difference in our students' ability to connect with the curriculum and with each other, as well as their partners abroad. They formed lasting friendships. They looked at things in a different way, and it gave us as faculty a whole new idea on how to incorporate these relationships into more of our classes, motivating students and again, enriching our curriculum even more.
If this sounds like something you're interested in or want to learn more about, just contact the Exploration Study Abroad office. Or you can submit an interest form by going to tinyurl.com/BW Global Classroom, and we will be in touch with your next steps.
Thanks, Kristen. I don't know, the video was a bit laggy on my end, not sure if it was for everybody, but the message was still there, and so I think it was still valuable. So we are going to go ahead and switch to Chisomo so that she can talk about her experience in Zambia.
Hello, all. Just to reintroduce myself, I'm Associate Professor Chisomo Salamani. I am just recovering from having COVID, so if I seem a little bit off, that's what's going on. I'm so happy to be back on campus and to see all of your wonderful faces and to share a bit about the lessons that we've learned over these last few years. So as you may know, a pretty significant portion of my job has been to support the development of our initiatives in Zambia, the Bold and Wallace in Zambia program. And so one of the activities, one of the endeavors through the BW in Zambia programs is this, the speech language pathology annual study abroad program. And so as you all can imagine, as we all experienced a year ago, we went through collective upheaval, and our students were really excited to travel. Our students were, many of our students specifically choose our graduate program for the ability to travel to Zambia and engage in some really groundbreaking work. So when we were tasked with the question, are we going to do this? There was some trepidation. We were a little scared. We didn't quite know how everything would directly translate. So when we look at this question, how did SLP Zambia adapt to a virtual study abroad experience? There was a moment where we thought, can we do this? But because of our existing partnerships, because of the support that comes out of the Study Abroad office, and I really have to applaud Kristen and Christy for their enduring support of us, the faculty, as we develop faculty-led programs, we were able to be innovative. And so something that I love about Study Abroad is it enables our students to see from a different vantage point, to take a step out of themselves and out of the comfortable and to step into the unknown and be immersed in a different worldview, in a different cultural experience and so on. So as we thought about how to transition to a virtual program, we knew we couldn't necessarily superimpose what we'd done in the past when we were in person. We needed to be innovative. So we enlisted the help of our community partners in Zambia. And I think you'll find a common theme, even as you listen to Danielle, who's coming up, you'll find the common theme of partnership. And so I think that as we explore new horizons in this unprecedented time, we really need to lean on our relationships and cultivate relationships all over the globe in order for us to be able to move in innovation. And then, and through that, we can do some really exciting things. So as I said, we had 20 students who were so excited to travel abroad. And so when the news hit that they couldn't travel, one would think, oh, well, there's a pandemic, so naturally maybe they would be okay with not traveling. They were so excited that they were devastated and angry, reasonably so, and grieving. So when I tell you that our program was successful, it was successful in light of all of the emotional labor, all of the emotional experience. So our students actually didn't really think that we could do what we set out to do. The first day, if you were to talk to them, many of them were, they were resistant. They didn't necessarily think that we were going to be able to do some cool things. But as soon as they met the students from the Starkey Hearing Institute, their tune changed. So what did we do during that time? we met with Starkey Hearing Institute students. We got to have these interprofessional education moments. We workshopped through cases. So some of you might know that speech pathology is a health care field. And so we are practitioners. And so they had the opportunity to problem solve in an international context, considering not just themes from the United States, but themes and considerations in Zambia and across Africa, because the Starkey Hearing Institute students are from across the continent. So they started to think about communication as a human right and their role in facilitating improved communication outcomes with these students. And so once again, the Study Abroad office is incredible. And what I held on to as I developed this idea was something that Christy told me years ago, which was, if you want to have a successful program internationally, consider having students meet other students. So whenever you're able to engage with students from another place, it really opens our students' minds to see the world through the lens of people who are very similar to them, but then have all sorts of different experiences, all sorts of nuanced adjustments. And so I would encourage you, if you were thinking about doing any kind of global classroom work, think about working collaboratively with other students. We also met with our community partners and developed a video resource library. And so what our work is very driven by what our partners do. So we allow our partners to inform what we put together. And then lastly, we had some critical conversations with people from other industries. So we stepped outside of the healthcare realm and we stepped into media. And so we had one of Zambia's most prolific and well-known filmmakers, Ngozi Chungu. We watched her film and then had a discussion with her. We talked to some of the people who are making some great changes in fashion. My ring is designed by Kamanga Wear. If you see me in African garb, that I'm often dressed by Kamanga Wear, and so on. So we were able to engage in these other cultural elements as well. Was it successful? Absolutely. Did our students start out with bad attitudes? Absolutely. But by the end of the virtual experience, they all were expressing that they wished that other students would have the opportunity. In our focus group that Christy Schreffler and Amy Jo led, the students indicated that they believe that while this may have been one of the first virtual study abroad programs to happen, they certainly didn't want it to be one of the last. So thank you so much. I believe that is my time.
Great. So I'll jump in here. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Danielle Kuntz. I am faculty in the Conservatory, Assistant Professor of Music History. And I chose to sort of engage the Global Classroom Initiative in a slightly different way, not attached to a sort of canceled study abroad initiative, but really just sort of taking the resources of global classrooms and trying to integrate it into a course that I teach very frequently here on campus as a way to kind of energize that material and see if I could engage the students in it differently and more productively. And I hope to sort of share some of the basic outlines of how I approached the collaboration that unfolded as maybe a little inspiration for you all as you look at just the things you're doing here semester to semester and thinking about, if global classrooms could be integrated purposefully into them. So the class that I chose was, again, a class that I teach very often. It's Music History and Literature 2. It's the second of a 4-semester sequence in music history that most of our music majors take. And the focus of that class is on Western European music history broadly in the period 1400 to 1750. That probably doesn't seem like the most obvious choice for this sort of global collaboration. But one of the learning objectives that I have cultivated over my work at BW in that class is to focus on that music history and its development globally in that period, the period of 1400 to 1750, and to really help students to be able to question and think critically about the cross-cultural impact of musical systems in that period. One facet of that study is a focus on, of course, the era of European expansion and colonization, particularly in the Americas. And so my idea that I brought to Kristen was to perhaps cultivate a collaboration with a Latin American or South American partner. Kristen put me in contact with a professor of cross-cultural communication at the Universidad de la SUAY in Cuenca, Ecuador, Professor Monica Martinez Sojos. And we met just one time over the summer via Zoom for about an hour, and really quickly sort of drew our interests together and developed a multi-session collaboration that we unfolded over the course of the whole semester that explored several points of contact between the musical and cultural traditions of Ecuador, Europe, and the US. This engaged about 15 BW and 45 students from SY. All of them were undergraduates. Our students were all music majors, and theirs were all majoring in international study. And so we first got together in a little meet and greet. The students got to know each other, shared some contacts, started to build friendships. And then we had subsequently 3 individual sessions where we tried to kind of strike a balance between our perspectives and to engage a variety of active learning techniques that built up to a small group creative project at the end of the semester. Our first session was focused on music, and so students with peers from their home institution prepared presentations exploring a variety of Ecuadorian, European, and US American musical topics. Those were traditional, popular, classical, and we really gave them sort of creative freedom in choosing what felt best to present as representative of their musical values. In the second session, we switched our focus to culture, and the students all completed an assigned reading chosen by my faculty partner as a basis for debating ways of understanding culture and narrative and identity, both past and present. And then our final project, we mixed the students up into mixed groups of BW and ASY students. They prepared really brief creative presentations. Some were like funny TikTok videos, others were like these video presentations of like a mock classroom, and we kind of left it up to them to decide the format, but they drew on the materials of our first 2 sessions to kind of creatively rewrite a historical narrative, political, cultural, musical, and other perspectives coming in as they wanted to sort of imagine, you know, a different set of interactions between the US and Europe and Ecuador to kind of contemplate ways to move toward a more equitable future. Lots of really interesting themes came out of those conversations for our music students. There was a lot of discussion about, you know, the balance of traditional and classical musics and Western music training, but there were also just a lot of conversations about, you know, our relative cultural positions and how we view the world and, you know, what we all bring to the table. And one of the really interesting ones that came up very often was, you know, the Ecuadorian cultural value placed on nature and what that means for climate change, and just ways that sort of broadened our students' minds to just sort of thinking differently about something that sometimes was musical and sometimes wasn't, but all of which felt really, really impactful. If you want to switch to the next slide, whoever is controlling it, I think Kristen, I can talk just very briefly to kind of round it out about some of the challenges and what I think were the benefits of my particular approach to this collaboration. Of course, the first challenge was to choose the right course. And, you know, I've thought a lot about the experience I had in this particular one. I think it worked really well in terms of the topic and the content, but this course also, just as a matter of requirements, meets a writing extension requirement for the university. The global classrooms with that requirement were very difficult to manage in terms of workload for me and for the students. So moving forward, doing this again, I would probably try to integrate those projects or possibly shift to another part of our music history sequence in terms of the course to do this kind of collaboration in. I think, you know, there are also limited collaborations for music specific partnerships just by the nature of how music is taught in most universities. And so I had to think a little bit creatively about, you know, what point of contact to cultivate with a global partner, assuming that I wasn't going to get a music history class with a bunch of music majors and a music history professor. So I think it is possible to sort of look through your course objectives and the themes for learning that you have in your course and to maybe draw something else in that will add some perspective for your students beyond what they expect to learn in your course. You know, I do believe I did some reflections at the end of the semester, and I think the students responded extremely positive ways to the experience. And I echo a lot of what Chizomo has already shared about the impact. Of course, there was impact on course content, and I've shared a couple of the reflections on this slide that a couple of our music majors shared with me. But they also just, there were much broader ramifications for them in terms of their overall learning. And I was surprised, but maybe shouldn't have been, to learn that almost none of the students in my course had ever interacted with someone from outside the US. And they expressed an interest in continuing this kind of work, and having gone through it, I think it is a really safe and low stakes way for them to kind of open their mind to global interaction and collaborations of this sort. And I suspect that many of them will be excited to pursue subsequent opportunities. I also just really got the sense from my students that there was a deeper engagement with some of the materials of my course that I often struggle to get students to engage in, which is to say, you might imagine I don't have a lot of difficulty getting my students to care about the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. Like, that's kind of what we do in the conservatory, and they're always like, yeah, that's important, I got it. But when we approach things like Iberian or Latin American musics, which don't form, a really core part of their repertoire, it can often, you often get the sense as a professor that they're sort of like, okay, this is interesting, but why should I care? And I felt like this experience really energized them to see the value in those musics, that they got to talk with people who care so much about these musical traditions, that sort of live and breathe them every day in a way that they couldn't ever have expected. And it really brought the work of our historical study into the present in a really, really big way for them. So I would be happy, of course, to share more and to have conversations with any of you who are exploring these kind of ideas in your own classroom, to share what worked well for me, where we found more challenges, and to kind of help bring this perspective to your work. So please use me as a resource. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So before we wrap everything up, we just wanted to provide a few additional examples for the ways that you can provide students with a meaningful international experience, even right here from Berea. So you'll see on the slide, the first is just really simple, a lecture exchange. So, Danny and Chisomo gave very specific kind of long-term examples. This one could just be as simple as that, where we can connect you with one of our international partners, see if they have faculty who are willing to guest a lecture for your class, and maybe you do the same for theirs. So that's just like a really easy way to kind of get started with this. There's virtual meetings. So again, depending on your course content, you can arrange guest speakers, break students up into groups, have them interview or just meet with local businesses, NGOs, advocacy organizations, local city officials. And then again, we have those contacts in those various locations, so we can connect you with our partners to help set those things in motion. The cultural exchange, that really refers more to things like cooking classes, dance lessons, music lessons. So the example that Chisomo talked about with, or maybe you talked about it, the dance classes that was incorporated into your agenda. So they provided those opportunities for students to get that cultural exchange as well. We've also seen things like cooking classes where maybe we would pair our students up with a family abroad, and those families would say, here's some ingredients, go to your grocery store and buy them, and then together we'll set up a time and cook that meal together. So just really fun ways for them to engage with a culture different from their own. And then the last one on here are global pen pals, and that's providing students the opportunity to connect with other students. Chisomo, you talked about this and how important that is, really providing them opportunities to engage with each other. So we can have students who provide virtual tours of their campus, of their community, just really introducing them to their classroom. What is it like taking a class abroad? And then our students would do the same. Let me introduce you to BW. Let me show you around. So just a way for them to meet students from around the world. So again, those are just some few examples that really to help you kind of get started with internationalizing your curriculum. But really, we would say that the possibilities are endless. There's so many more things that you can do. So really that ends the kind of more formal part of our presentation. We wanted to leave some time for any questions. Maybe you were inspired by something today. You can always reach out to any of us. We would be happy to kind of brainstorm with you, explore things a bit further. There's also a link here where if you're interested, you can just go ahead and submit an interest form, and then we can follow up with you. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'll leave this slide up just in case you want to write down any of the information, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Kristen, can I add two more things? One, our work in Zambia is pretty dynamic, so we aim to have year-round connections with our partners abroad. And this semester, in addition to some of the other activities that we did last year, we are launching an interprofessional education experience with our with our members of the School of Education as well. So we have students from education, students from speech pathology working together to do assessments in a school in Zambia. And so it's through Arise Africa, and Arise Africa has been one of our primary partners for the duration of our Baltimore Allston Zambia initiative. And then lastly, I wanted to add a little bit more to what you were saying about the cultural exchange moment. Our interactions with the students enabled them to have both academic experiences and lecture exchange project, collaborative working in projects, but then also we did do dance lessons. We had we actually used breakout rooms and themed those breakout rooms. And so the themes that we used were music, dance, recreation, and then conversation. So students grouped themselves and they just had a moment to kind of hang out with one another. So I just wanted to add that there, that we can very easily do some really cool things.
Any questions?
I would ask a question. I don't think there's okay. Yeah. Well, first of all, I wanted to say hello to Chisomo. I'm a new professor, assistant professor of German. My name is Christina Svensson, and I just wanted to mention to you. I don't know if you know the work of Namwali Serpal. She's actually an old friend of mine, but she's a professor at UC Berkeley and Zambian. And she writes novels in the Afrofuturist tradition. And if you want students to read something at any point, her novel, The Old Drift, is fantastic. I just wanted to throw that out there. I actually spent time visiting her in Lusaka. It's a wonderful place. But I have a question. I would like to do this in some form, and I have contacts of my own, unsurprisingly, since I'm a professor of German. Would I need to do things? Are there types of official approval that I would need to get? How does it work if I wanted to connect with a professor of American Studies in German that I already know?
You can certainly do that. We are just trying to keep track within our office, so we'll still just have a conversation about what you're doing. The biggest thing for us is that to really continue to keep our partners engaged. And so, we do have a partnership at the University of Osnabrück. And so if there's a way to keep our current partners engaged while especially we're not sending students back and forth, that is our probably priority. However, we are absolutely, we want our students to have these opportunities and experiences. So if you have those contacts, certainly we should investigate those. But we can do that together.
Super, thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And to respond to you, yes, I actually know her. I know Namwali.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I actually had the privilege to interview her with her recent win of the Anna Sildewolf Book Award. So I got to know her that way. And then also Ngosa Chungu, who I mentioned. Zambia is a small place. So award-winning filmmaker knows award-winning author and knows lowly academic. Sorry, not that we're low. You get what I'm saying. Basically, she's wonderful and her work is impressive. And I'm so glad to hear that she's being recognized and the Old Drift is being used in different corners of campus. So, yeah.
Great. Well, I see that we are out of time. 30 minutes goes by quickly. I want to thank everyone for coming and learning about this new initiative. Certainly, thank you to Chisomo and Danielle. Eloquent as always, and was great to hear your perspectives and thoughts. Even though I've heard them before, it always re-energizes me. So thanks to both of you. Please feel free to reach out to any of us. We would be happy to get you all started on the next steps. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Christy. Bye, everyone.